Good evening, and welcome to the Wednesday, September 28th Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee. We have some special guests in attendance. We actually have some members of the Conservation Board with us this evening. So I just want to introduce Pat Schickler from the Conservation Board, Daniel Moore from the Conservation Board, and then we're the regular cast of characters. So, and live and in person is Sarah Waterman, our sustainability engineer. So welcome back. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic from which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess we do have a public participation session, but there is no one in the audience. So can we consider that just move on?
I think that's fine.
Okay. Then Sarah, you are leading the next community choice aggregation discussion. This is a high-level discussion of being almost 1 year into the program and what we're seeing on the townwide level, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll start with the program officially started at the end of December last year. And at that point, the initial customer count was, or account count was 8,501. That's approximately 64% of the accounts in the town of Penfield that stayed a part of the program. Accounts that were eligible to be in the program stayed a part of the program. At this point, that number has gone down to about 62%. And of all of those residents that have been in the program over the last almost year, there's been approximately a $48 savings per resident over that time. And that adds up to approximately a $400,000 savings for residents cumulatively in town. With that, I wanted to share a graph that Good Energy put together for us that shows the carbon offsets that number of residents by being a part of this program and having the green energy percentage kind of saved or potentially saved. When looking at this graph, you see the different colors. The blue is potential passenger vehicle usage for 1 year. The red is the total number of garbage trucks for a year that essentially the carbon offset is there. And then the green is total homes annual energy usage. And that's just converting greenhouse gas emissions into something that it's easier to understand rather than just a large number. So over the past year, there's been a huge savings in greenhouse gas emissions by having a 50% green program. And that's what this graph is reflecting. We are looking to share that on the Penfield CCA website in the near future. Are there any questions on that?
So going back to your comment about $48 per resident savings, how do you explain when you hear people say, but my bill has gone up? So can you address that?
Sure. So throughout the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, a lot of our Genie prices were going down dramatically. And then as people began using more energy, going out and doing more things, the prices increased, supply and demand. And there's been a large amount of inflation. So although we are part of a fixed rate program and the supply rate is fixed for the residents that are part of the CCA program, the delivery charges as well as the gas delivery and supply charges fluctuate because that's a variable rate. So that moves with the economy and with similar to how stocks work. But also the cost of electricity in general has gone up, and it was expected to go up. And that's part of why the town board chose last year to enter into this program at the rate that they did, because there was that high expectation for rates to go up. So if you're part of the program, and I'll pull up another slide for that. If you're part of the program, you are actually seeing a savings compared to if you are part of RG&E for your electricity supply. So you can see in this green bar, the cost of electricity supply is 5.733 cents per kilowatt hour for the CCA program. If you were part of RG&E's supply for electricity, you would be paying close to, above 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour in the last 30 days. If you look at the last 3 months average, you'd be paying 6.7 kilowatts per hour on average. And that's because all of the electricity rates have gone up in the variable price for RG&E's electricity supply. An item that's been a large confusion for residents lately is that when they're getting their bills, they're seeing a line item for Constellation New Energy, and that's been confusing because what they're seeing as a separate item seems like an additional charge, whereas on your regular RG&E bill and you're not part of a CCA program, you would be getting a charge for RG&E electricity supply, but that's grouped in with your electricity charges if you're just part of RG&E. Because the CCA program has a different supplier than RG&E, because RG&E does not offer fixed rates and they do not offer the green supply that the CCA program does, it has to be a separate line item. So residents are still seeing an increase in cost compared to this time last year. That's something that's happening, and it will likely continue to happen, but it's not because the cost of electricity supply is changing by month. It's because the cost of delivery for both gas and electric are changing, because the cost of gas is changing, and it's because there was the expected increase in cost throughout the last year anyway. With that, if anyone's looking at their bills, I highly recommend that they look at their kilowatt hour usage, because RG&E has been having difficulty with their billing in the last year, and there's been a lot of estimated bills. So they're estimating the kilowatt hours that residents are using, and that ends up increasing costs by month. That would mean, say, this month someone has to pay $300 for their electricity and gas, whereas when they get an actual reading, they settle up and then end up getting a lower bill sometimes. If anyone wants to review their bill with the town, we're happy to help with that. We are working on having an example budget bill as well as a regular bill that are a part of the CCA program, so that residents will be able to go to either the town website or the Penfield CCA website so that they can just look at it on their own and not have to ask extra questions. But we are here to answer questions.
Okay, so if I could summarize, basically, the CCA program of having a fixed electricity rate is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it's providing electricity at, it's purchasing electricity at a fixed cost.
Correct.
However, other parts of your bill are going up because of supply and demand, basically delivery charges, and remember, this never included gas.
That's correct.
This program had nothing to do with gas service.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Something in addition to that to be aware of, RG&E this past year went to the Public Service Commission to ask for a rate increase for their delivery charges. And what that means for residents is if that rate increase is approved by the DPS, then the cost of delivery for electricity and gas will go up next year. That's something that the public can comment on. There are comment sessions actually, well, there was one today. There's also one on October 18th. So if anyone wants to make comments to the Public Service Commission about RG&E's potential rate change, then they can sign up the day before to make a public comment, or they can send in letters.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Sarah?
I guess I just want to clarify or kind of verify. So those charges are going to go up for everybody regardless of whether they're part of the CCA or part of just the regular RG&E supply?
That's correct. The delivery charges will go up for everyone. The electricity supply charge for the CCA program members or residents will continue to stay the same because that is a fixed rate. Obviously, if you use more energy, you're spending more money, but it's based on the number of kilowatt hours you used. The cents per kilowatt hour is the same for the entire program duration, which is until the end of 2023. I did bring up another chart just for reference. This one shows the program rate compared to RG&E over the term of the CCA program so far. And if you look at the red line, you see the fluctuation in the cost of energy through RG&E. If you look at the green line, that's the fixed rate for the CCA program. So there have been some months that the rate at RG&E was slightly lower than the rate with our program. The majority of the months, as you can see, the rate with RG&E was higher than our program, which is why, on average per resident, there's approximately a $48 savings throughout the duration of the program, which again is approximately a $400,000 savings over the residents in the town that are part of the CCA program.
Thanks.
And I think it's important to know that the RGA supply is not half renewable.
That's very correct.
Okay.
Part of why the town board went with the program at the price that they did was not just because energy prices were expected to go up, but also because they wanted that renewable energy in people's energy source. And with that, if you were to go out as a resident on your own, especially right now, but even when the program started, to get green energy, it's more expensive than paying the base rate for RG&E.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Sarah? Okay, and then Sarah does get to give this whole presentation again in a couple of hours at the town board meeting. So thank you very much for bringing us up to date. And I think that we actually have to start thinking about whether we want to continue with this as a town pretty soon, right?
So over the next, I would say 12 months, because the program ends in about 15 months.
Okay.
The town board, as well as Good Energy and town staff, have to start looking at what prices we can potentially get again and what source of energy the town is looking for, whether they'd like to stay at 50% green, increase that, decrease that, whatever the town board feels is most appropriate if we are to continue the program. There is the option to end the program. That is an option at the end of every single term as CCA exists. At this point, Good Energy, the CCA program administrator for the town, has started looking at prices that are coming in for different programs that they manage. So they will come to us if they see something that would benefit us a lot. Generally, towns will not change their program within the first year. So we would expect to start looking at that more thoroughly in January.
So not the immediate future, but
Soon.
shortly.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, and I think you're still on the hot seat, Sarah, for clean energy community discussion.
Yep. So with that, we as a committee have encouraged the town to continue pursuing different clean energy goals. And in previous years and in the previous administration, the town pursued those goals without getting any official certifications through clean energy communities. At this time, the town has been approved for 2 different clean energy community high-impact action items. There are 14 high-impact action items that the town can pursue. So far, we have completed community campaigns and energy code education for our building department. And we've been certified for both of those. We have also started, as a town, reviewing our lighting system throughout the town, and those are street lights, to be clear, and started converting them over to LED street lights as they broke. The town in recent years, has done an audit, or had done an audit, of the streetlights in town to determine what the cost is to continue that and where the funds will potentially come from. At this time, the town board has approved using ARPA funds to support that streetlight project. And that is one of the high impact action items that the town can pursue. At this point, we are bringing this item to the town board to determine if the town will pursue a formal CEC designation. And with that, something that should be considered if this committee wants to continue supporting that and supporting the town board making that decision is that by pursuing this, there's a benefit of different funding that we can get between designation grants, action grants, and point-based grants, as well as continuing what the town's been doing for years and has been leading other towns by example with the different EV charging stations, with the solar field that we have, as well as pursuing the LED changeover and the community choice aggregation. So those are positives of that. But the town board also has to obviously consider the cost for that. And although the town board has chosen to support a sustainability engineer, there are continued costs for the town that need to be considered in the budget in the future, whether we pursue other items than the LED change for the streetlights, or if we can pursue benchmarking or any other of the high impact action items. So those are things that we will discuss with the town board and something that the committee should consider if they want us to keep pursuing these action items, how we continue pursuing these action items, and if we are actually looking for that designation, or if it's just we want the town to be more sustainable and not also have that designation. With that, one of the high impact action items that we are still in the process of getting approval for that we have been pursuing is a community campaign. Over the last year, and it just ended in August, we've been doing classes for heating, cooling, and energy efficiency with Color Penfield Green at the Penfield Library and Community Center. And with those classes, we've been working with Heat Smart Monroe to help residents get home audits for free of their energy usage and home leakage, those types of things, and then also help them, if they so want, pursue heat pumps or other energy efficiency upgrades for their homes. We are in the process of getting the last of the paperwork so that we can submit for formal approval for that through NYSERDA. And with that, if we do get formal approval, which we are expecting to as we've completed the requirements, we can apply for one of the action grants for $5,000 and then put that towards other sustainable efforts in the town.
So that's not just people attending the classes, but actually either the first one buying EV vehicles or the other program buying a heat pump for their home. So it's not just a...
So it's not only an education platform, it's also so that residents are taking that education and applying it by getting, in this case, 5 free home audits. So 5 different residents getting home audits, and there's no cost to that. And then 3 residents or resident homes having upgrades, most of them for heat pumps.
So the paperwork is the certification of the purchase of the heat pump, and then the previous one was the purchase of the EVs after
Correct.
attending the class.
Yes.
And then what would be the benefits or pros and cons when you join something or you designate yourself as a clean energy community? Let me ask, what are the pros and cons? I think the pros you've sort of said, but
Sure.
what are the negatives, if there are any?
So the big potential negative, and you can see it as a negative or a positive depending what side you're on. Like I said, there is a cost to it, and it's a continuing cost. So if the town is to keep doing the same things and keep pursuing these different sustainable or climate goals, then there's that continued cost that needs to be considered in the town budget. And those are for things, like I said, benchmarking. Generally, for a municipality, you have to hire a firm to do that. And then there's continued efforts where you have to keep collecting that data, and then eventually, most of the time, towns continue to pursue it and would end up putting in heat pumps or more solar farms or even geothermal. Those things are not inexpensive, and that affects the town budget, which is made up of taxpayer money. That's really the biggest negative of pursuing it, because we need to get the 4 high impact action items to even be designated, and we're not there yet.
And then if we were designated a clean energy community and then somewhere decided, we just can't afford this, what happens?
Nothing. It doesn't change. The town's still considered designated. There's no additional requirements to continue any of those efforts or to continue getting any of the actions that we take certified by NYSERDA. The requirement is just 4 high impact action items.
I think that's some of the difference between the clean energy communities and then climate smart. I think climate smart, and that's why we're kind of looking at this one first, and we've done some of the elements towards it, and I think we're further along on this. And then, depending on the success of this, then looking at climate smart. But climate smart has the finish line, kind of continues to move, and I think it's a great program. But I think it's also, once you're in it, it's hard to. I just don't think it looks good if you're unbecome a climate smart community once you're in it. I mean, hopefully we get into all these programs and clean energy, and we've been tracking these for a number of years. And as Sarah had shared, looking at many of the items that are in there and following along with it. But I just make sure that, once we're in, I just don't think the optics are great to say we're unbecoming a clean energy community or we're unbecoming a climate smart community. I just don't think it looks good. Hopefully we're in it. We want to stay in it. We want to continue to, move forward in it. So that's why we're, looking to make sure the committee is still committed to that. And then obviously speaking to the town board later and making sure the town board, whether the town board wants to pursue it as well and, continue to move forward.
And to Mark's point, with clean energy communities, there is not a re-up or a redesignation period. You're designated and you stay designated. For climate smart communities, every 5 years, there's a redesignation period where you have to submit a certain amount of paperwork and there's a certain amount of items that you have to complete.
So looking at the clean energy community ones, so far, we've been actively involved with two of the high impact items.
We have formally completed 2 of them.
So we picked those because those were low-hanging fruit?
Correct.
Okay.
And we are currently in the process of applying for another one. We had it approved as an item, but we are in the middle of completing the paperwork. All of the items are complete, but working with Heat Smart Monroe, we need to get the paperwork. We are also pursuing clean fleets, which is the charging stations that we're looking to put in apply to that. And we are also pursuing the street lights, LED street lights, which is another high impact action item.
Okay, and you said 4 gets us to a certain level.
4 makes us designated. So there's participating and then there's designated. We are currently participating, but we are not a designated clean energy community.
Okay, so as participating, we still are eligible for some grant monies, but not as much as a designated? Is that how that works, or are they
To a point, yes.
first come, first serve a little bit?
They're all first come, first serve, based on availability and based on completion of action items. The action grants are available for community campaigns, which is part of why we pursued that in the first place, also because we had the support for those classes by Color Penfield Green. We have already received one action grant, and we are looking to pursue a second action grant. There are only 3 action grants that you can possibly get, and the other one is for New York stretch, which is actually in the middle of a rehaul at this point. The other grants that we can get is a designation grant, and that's for $5,000. So that's once 4 high-impact action items are completed, we can apply for that grant. And then the other ones are point-based grants. So there's 3 different levels, and the highest one, the town, at this time, based on our population, is a $70,000 grant based on 5,000 points. And different action items have different point values.
So as long as so at this point in time, we've been pursuing things that made economic as well as sustainability sense to do.
Yes.
Are there other ones on that list of high-impact items that are kind of in that general category, or are the other ones just out there? Like I know, for example, the CCA, while we've made one option of doing that, I believe that the CCA that you need to have is the 100% green to make it count.
That's correct. For approval for the CEC, then it has to be 100% green. The town board was not comfortable previously with moving forward with 100% green because that would up the cost of electricity supply for residents by a large amount, that there was not an expected savings.
That's still true as far as we can tell.
At this time, that is, yes.
Yeah.
There are other items that the town can pursue, but those items are more costly items.
So there would just need to be a good cost-benefit ratio available to offset those costs.
And funds available.
Yeah, with the funding, and I think, you say some of these other options, if there was a heating system in a town building that had to be replaced using air source or ground sourced geothermal, those systems are expensive, but if you do the financials and the dollars are there to help you, I think in the long run, they actually come out more cost effective.
In the long run, that's generally accurate.
Yeah.
And like I said, the biggest con is it's an upfront cost, and that affects the
Right.
town budget.
Exactly, yeah.
I want to make sure that Dan and Pat have an opportunity to ask questions too.
Okay, the thing that I was thinking when we're talking about cost benefits is that I know the state is working on plans that eventually, I don't know, another 10, 20 years, there will be certain requirements for all communities. So a benefit, whereas there are dollar costs up front, wouldn't it be that we are working towards pursuing where we need to be in view of state laws that will, I think, Daniel, you're probably more familiar too. It's the state laws already in effect, and they're just working on ways now of how to put this into place in all the various counties across the state.
I do know that by 2030, New York there's no real action towards taking that. They don't have like an idea, but by 2030 that at least half of energy has to be green across all of New York State.
So by continuing to pursue these different items, and including if the town was to, say, put in a geothermal system when replacing another system or similar, that would definitely continue to pursue the town's sustainable goals. At this time, there are not New York State regulations or
Right.
directions in how to meet that goal by 2030. And the current expectation that has been presented is actually that the energy will be provided in New York State, and that leads more to having solar farms or wind farms and those kinds of things, and less specifically to the expectation that municipalities pursue a net zero. I'm not saying that it's not good if the town pursues that. That's obviously an environmental positive. But I think this committee and the town board should definitely consider the cost of it, because that affects the residents. So yes, we want a healthy society and we want more sustainable goals and to meet those. But we do have to, and the town board as elected officials have to determine what that cost benefit ratio is. And it's helpful to know what the residents are looking at and expecting.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, did you have anything else you wanted to add or ask? So I think because this conversation is happening with the town board this evening, and I expect that this will be a preliminary conversation, is there any feedback from this board or from the conservation board members here that you'd like me to pass along?
So I guess from my perspective, I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, but we've been a group for even longer. And I think that, in honesty, the town of Penfield's sustainability actions speak clearer than us having a certification or some sort of, qualification from another organization. So I would really like to think, while personally I would love to be able to say I'm part of a clean energy community or climate smart community, I think the town of Penfield is a little bit more meticulous in the pursuit of things that actually take these maneuvers. But we have a great story to tell. And I think that story still says that if you look at Penfield's actions, we are a clean energy, we are a climate smart seeking community.
But less about the letters after the name.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else? Any other comments? Okay. Great, then I think we'll close out this item for now and move right on to electric vehicle charging stations.
We can definitely do that. So we wanted to touch base on the goals that the town currently has with electric vehicle charging stations and what we are currently working on. So we've previously discussed stations at the town hall, and we've previously discussed the idea of putting stations at the Four Corners parking lot behind Joe Gatz and the tailor shop, as among other buildings. And at this point, we are actually pursuing the Municipal Zero-emissions Vehicle Infrastructure Grant to help fund the installation of 2 dual-head stations in that parking lot that are networked and would allow residents to charge down there. It has, at this time, that grant application is actually due this Friday. We don't have a timeline at this point as to when we will find out if it's approved or denied, but we are pursuing monies for that through the ZEV infrastructure grant as well as the Make Ready program with RG&E.
Okay, any questions for Sarah?
Just how much would the grant be, and would it cover all, just one charging station, or how many?
So actually, the grant can be up to $250,000. We don't need that much for this project. The town is looking at approximately $40,000 from ZEV and $24,000 from Make Ready. The town is required to have a match of 20%, but we're actually allowed to use the RG&E Make Ready funds for our match. If we can get both of those, there would not be a cost to the town. If we cannot get both of those and we can get the full 80% from the from the ZEV grant, then it would be approximately $8,500 plus or minus dollars that the town would have to match.
Okay, great. So you keep us posted when you hear hopefully good
Absolutely.
news?
Yep.
Good. All right, sustainability code.
That's me too. So for the sustainability code, actually over the summer, Carrie Ivers, the head of the director of developmental services, applied for a consolidated funding application grant, and we're expecting to get notice if that grant was approved this December. With that will help determine more of the timeline for the completion of the sustainability code. But as this committee knows, we have previously started that based on the NYSERDA draft codes that are available.
So Sarah, I want to make sure that this committee keeps involved with that process. Is this something that we can help with from meeting to meeting,
Sure.
It just seems like we have a lot of talent and a lot of interest, so we want to make good use of that.
That's a great idea. As we continue to pursue the sustainability code, this group would be a great benefit for this group to review it and make any recommendations, both if the committee wants at the meetings or even throughout the week and months in between.
I mean, I think it would be helpful in terms of also just generating good conversation to have a part in that.
Okay.
And I think it's also creates good code when you have input from the community. So I think that would be helpful. Are all the other board members in favor of that?
Yeah, I think we supported that at one point in time with one piece, little itty bitty piece of it, and I know that was.
Right.
And that was when we were originally starting with the solar code. We got some good feedback from the committee.
I have a kind of a silly question. Why does it cost money to do code?
So, and maybe Mark can speak to it more.
That would help us bring in a consultant just to kind of do the last part of it. So we kind of do the meat and potatoes and then bring a consultant in. So it'd be a cost to hire them just to make sure we're not missing pieces of it. Is there other parts or new technology out there that we should be looking at or incorporated into our code? So I think the solar part, we're looking at geothermal, we're looking at battery storage, we're looking at some of those that either we may not have the entire expertise in, but that part would just help us hire a consultant to kind of do that last bit and say, well, you should be looking at and including 5G or, some other technologies that, we may not be aware of. So that's the part of the grant is we'll continue to work on it on our own as we've done with this committee, share it with this group. Part of that grant would just help offset the cost of having a consultant to come in to do a final check-see on it and let us know if we're missing anything else.
I think it would be great, too, when we find out about this grant, whether positive or negative, that we have some sort of a timeline so that we can have something to shoot for in terms of when we'd like to have a sustainability code, a draft, and then reviewed, and then in place. I do think that would be helpful. It kind of gives us something to shoot for.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Sarah? Nope. All right, streetlight project, Mark.
So we just wanted to bring it back to the committee. We've been talking about upgrading to streetlights for a number of years, and the DPW has been working with their groups. Anytime we have a light out or a fixture out, they've been replacing with LED, but it's been a bigger lift to look at doing all of the system together. So Eric, our DPW director, hired a group. They went out and did an audit of all of our lights, looked at how many lights we have, how many need to be upgraded, and then share that with the town board. So in the town board, and looking at use of ARPA funds, so the American Rescue Plan Act, if you've been watching the town board meetings, the town board's talked about it for many different meetings. As one of the items that they identified was some betterments or improvements to Shadow Pines, some improvements to the Four Corners, and then they've looked to allocate funds to upgrades to LED lights. So not only do we get the savings, upgrade and have better lights, but that's also one of the items, as Sarah had originally shared, in clean energy communities, so we can kind of get credits across many fronts as being a high impact item. But just did want to circle back and share with this group that the town board, took that action and said that they want to expend, a portion of those funds to do the LED upgrade on the light. So don't have a final time frame from Eric on when that's going to happen. But obviously, it's on his agenda and his schedule, and now that, we're allocating funds towards it, he's got that available and can make that happen.
And the other thing I wanted to add is that I believe that these lights will be smart lights, so they will have some ability to dim during non-peak hours. And then I believe there's also a 60% savings in our costs. So that's significant for the town. Okay.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I'd say we're one of the few towns that actually bought our lights from RG&E. Most communities, they're rentals, so you rent the light from RG&E and pay a flat cost. We actually own the lights. We just pay a per unit cost of, what that estimated, because there's not a meter on every light, so you pay so much for a high pressure sodium, so much. So if we can lower those down to LEDs, then, we can lower our rates, right off the top.
Right. Thank you. And then we do have some items of interest coming up or have come up. And Sarah, do you want to talk about the household hazardous waste event?
Sure. So we had the household hazardous waste collection event at the DPW earlier this month. We have yet to get numbers back from the county on how much was brought in. But this is an event that we generally do each year, either in the fall or the spring. So that's something to also look forward to next year. And once we have those numbers on what was collected, we'll provide that to the committee.
And that's typically a shared event with Webster. So it's a joint event, either here or Webster. We alternate years and who hosts it. So next year, since we hosted it this year, it would be in Webster next year, but Penfield residents are welcome to take their stuff there. And also take your stuff to Eco Park, as we're talking about it. So if there's stuff between now and next year's time frame, you do have to make an appointment, but Eco Park is a great resource for taking hazardous waste rather than disposing them. So a little plug for Eco Park is never a bad thing.
And because we're talking about, I just want to skip down to item D because it does involve our DPW again. So maybe we could just mention the fall drop-off and recycling.
Sure. So the fall drop-off and recycling event is going to also be held at the DPW, and that's September 30th and 31st, which is actually this weekend. That is an event that the DPW will be accepting household items from furniture and appliances, lawn mowers, car tires, vehicle batteries, broken concrete, as well as brush. The town will not be accepting household electronics such as TVs, chemicals, hazardous material, gasoline, and so on. If you would like more detail on what is not accepted versus what is accepted, that is on the town website.
Great. And I do want to just clarify, though, originally we expected to have on-site document destruction. That has changed from previous years. Actually, their truck is they've gotten rid of that truck, I guess, that handles it. So the company coming in is going to have locked bins. They will be secured and stored, but then removed, and documents will be shredded off-site. But I did want to just illuminate that change for people. Is there anything else we wanted to add, Chris?
Yeah, one thing just to note, it is Friday, September 31st, and then Saturday, October 1st.
September 30th.
Thank you.
There is no 31st.
30th, sorry, yeah. Well, we're
Sorry,
both.
thank you.
So September 30th, Friday, and October 1st, Saturday. So just to confirm the dates, and the specific times are on our website. You can find them on the calendar or on the homepage under the news section, and it also goes through some of the allowable items that Sarah had touched on earlier.
Okay. And then one other item in this year's budget, if approved, for 2023, will actually be expanding our brush drop-off hours. It'll be once a month on a Saturday. A lot of people were having difficulty making it during the times the DPW was open. We heard that, particularly people who were working. So we did add one Saturday drop-off per month during the months of April to October. And we're looking forward to that, to increasing services.
Okay, one of the things when I noticed when I pulled in was Our Bikes is doing a bike collection. Now, is that kind of to tag team with the fact that it's?
That was Recreation, I think, hosted that this past weekend. So
It said October 1st on it.
Yeah, it's actually, go ahead.
coming up.
It's October 1st, so it's taking place Saturday, and I believe it's at the community center.
Okay, so
but
it's
it is-
actually a different location.
Yeah, but it is an annual event, and it ties in with the whole recycling and reusing piece. So they not only, to my knowledge, they accept full working bikes, but they do parts as well. And then that's then distributed, and I believe Penfield Rotary has a hand in that as well. So it's a partnership between a few different organizations. I don't have the time offhand, but that is also available on the calendar on our website, and you can check our social media for a flyer on that as well.
I feel really badly. I'm a Rotarian and I don't remember the times, so I would have to look on the website as well. But it's
It's a really good organization that.
it's our community bikes, and Rotary has collected about 2,000 bikes in the time that they've been doing it here in Penfield. So
Yep.
it's pretty impressive. Okay, RIT Car Show. Bob, do you want to talk about this?
So this last Saturday, on the 24th, we did our annual, this is the National Drive Electric Week Electric Car Show at RIT. We had over 100 electric cars there. These were owner cars, and there were probably about 350 people that attended. It was the largest one that we've had to date. And there were car dealers that came as well to answer people's questions. The good news is on electric vehicles, there seems to be more being delivered now. Things are kind of loosening up in the supply chain. It's still, there's some work that needs to be done, obviously, but one of the things that will be in place for the most part, starting next year, will be more incentives for electric cars. There's a whole new structure around that. And with a lot of the directives that the federal government and different states are adopting, I think in the next 5 or 10 years, we'll see a pretty large rollout of new electric vehicles. Now, typically for the spring show around Earth Day, we have that in Penfield at the Penfield Community Center. So the plan would be to continue that. It's usually towards the end of April. And, I'll coordinate that if the town wants to move forward with at least providing the site for that. I'll work through Recreation to be sure we aren't conflicting with another date on that site. So we typically, again, try to do that in April towards the end of the month, so hopefully the weather cooperates when we have that show.
Is there a reason we wouldn't want to be involved in that? I mean, to me, it was
To date,
well received.
we've always had it there, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a good spot to have it. Color Penfield Green is worked quite a bit on the RIT show this fall. And in fact, this last year for the Penfield Spring Show, they did a lot of work. So I think, the plan would be to continue that at the community center.
Is this group in agreement? I'm seeing heads nodded, so
Okay.
I would say go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just, like I said, I usually check with rec to be sure that there isn't anything that's taking up their whole parking lot for that particular Saturday that we choose. Okay.
Sounds good. And Mark, would you be willing to give a brief Shadow Pines update?
Sure. So tonight, I'll be talking to the town board as well. We've been working with BME as our consultant, so this is for the development of that northeast corner. We're looking to establish a parking lot, bring in a bathroom, bring utilities in, do the basic earthwork, which includes a pond, and then as part of that, install some pickleball courts, have some allocated areas for future playgrounds, other elements at that. So we've been working with our consultant, BME Associates. They've taken it to the approval phase, sent it off to the agencies. We're finalizing our approvals with that now. And then coming tonight, they're looking to then move it to the next phase, is building bid documents so we can actually get it out to bid, and then hopefully get it into construction, sometime next year. So I'll be talking to the town board tonight. I don't expect the town board, have any issue with that. They've been very supportive of it going along, but just to, give them an update, have them, authorized to move ahead with that contract and then move into that next bidding phase. So hopefully exciting things to come. I know we had an event this past weekend. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about the dedication ceremony.
Oh, sure. We had a celebration of Shadow Pines last Saturday. We did get together and partner with the Friends of Shadow Pines group, as well as many groups who have interest in Shadow Pines to pursue activities like the Birding Association, or we had the Disc Golf Association because the disc golf course is already set up. We all got together, and the Friends of Shadow Pines provided a plaque, and that was mounted onto a very nice rock from Dolomite Quarry, and we just had a very nice celebration. It was really about, I think, partnerships and working together towards something. And this was a really great example of everyone coming together and, saying, okay, here's what this can be. Here are the possibilities. And there's really something for everyone at Shadow Pines. So nice event. And I believe it was filmed by PCTV, so you probably can find it on our website. Are there any questions about any of the events before we move on?
So I was going to ask, are there statistics on kind of the number of people that are using the Shadow Pines, using the disc golf, walking, running? I mean, I see a lot of people out there. It looks like the school systems are using it
I don't know
for
if
some
we
track
have
meets and.
We don't have a gathering mechanism for
I don't know
that.
if we have statistics on it, but as you said, I know we've, had cross-country meets there, both skiing, and running. I say disc golf, that's always been busy, and that's taken off, with the disc golf portion of it. There's always people walking, running, even biking out there. So it's been quite busy from at least our observation. I don't think we have a metric or, have gathered any, empirical data on how many people are using it, but I think I don't know, through social media, if we've seen any uptick in conversation or anything else, but at least going by, it always seems to be being used by people walking their dogs and quite active.
Any other questions? Okay. And under new business tonight, this was sort of a Cracker Barrel topic. We wanted to have a conversation about maybe how our boards might work together, or do we have some common interests and things like that. It's a very open-ended conversation, but it seems like several of us are interested in the same topics. So maybe we could discuss ways we might work together, or projects we want to take on, things like that.
Go ahead.
So the past few months, the Conservation Board has been kind of, as you were saying, like, what roles do we have as a board? And we've currently just kind of, I don't know exactly how to word it, but.
Well, we've been trying to identify and put sort of into writing. It has not been completely formalized yet as far as sharing and any documents, because not all members were able to be present when it was discussed. But I think some of the first thing to think about is we don't know what we don't know. We don't know, or we hadn't known exactly what you're working on. You don't know what we're working on. And I know there had been some conversation between Jim Olmsted and Bob, because we had been briefly talking in Conservation Board about leaf blowers, for instance, to move to electric leaf blowers, and what would that involve, and community education and things like that. So, where is it most appropriate for a project to lie with, one thing, and so key to that would be communication. And one thing that seems to be overlapping, just from hearing what you're talking about tonight, is we're very interested in community education. And so going forward, we would like that to be a continuing piece of our Conservation Board, because previously most of our role was to review projects and applications from builders and developers in regards to trees and conservation in that regard. So I guess that's where we're at, and I don't know the best way to do something like that. To answer that you don't know what you don't know question. And when, Mark, when you were talking about hiring somebody to review the code, the sustainability code, that spoke to me saying, well, we don't know if we're missing anything because we don't know what we don't know. So.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're looking to get together, is to, have some synergies between the group. I know I was slated to come out to the September meeting, and I think I'm coming out to the October meeting to talk about stormwater, to share with the group and share what we do for our MS4 program. So I think that's part of tonight's goals, and maybe, we look to this group maybe attend the November meeting of Conservation Board, so just to kind of see, as you said, what each group is working on, and, what you guys are doing, what we're doing, and see what synergies between the groups, we can capitalize on, or if there's, economies in that, or obviously, working with Chris on communication and doing public outreach, I think is universal across all the boards.
So maybe after you come to that meeting, maybe we would have a better idea as well about what that should be. How often does this board meet?
This board meets every other month.
Oh, okay.
So 6 times a year, whereas I think you meet monthly,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, and you have real work.
We have real work? Oh, well, we have, yes, because
we're kind of.
We go out and review, we have site visits, we write reports, we review the reports together, we discuss a lot, different issues, and we're, as Daniel said, we're sort of remaking ourselves, or we like to look at it that way, with town board approval as to what we'd like some goals to be. I mean, Daniel, if you wanted to share. As I said, our document's not ready for, publication because it hasn't been approved, but we were getting, one of the things was the education piece. And
Would I be able to read the draft mission statement? That might be a...
Sure, keeping in mind that this is not approved, so we hate to be...
So we'll put draft on the caption.
Yes, put draft, if you're taking any minutes, draft.
Okay.
So.
All throughout this document it says draft. So the mission of the Conservation Board of the Town of Penfield shall be to preserve and improve the quality of natural and built environments within the town through means of fostering an action on present and future environmental problems with the help of various public and private institutions, agencies, and organizations. To accomplish this while balancing our town's need for a socioeconomically viable and environmentally sustainable future, the Conservation provides an environmental review of construction project applications submitted to the Town of Penfield. The board conducts a review of the property and issues an advisory report related to the environmental protection and management. This report is submitted to the lead agency of said project, such as the town board, planning board, or zoning board of appeals.
So that's basically the reports that we have been doing right along, but just, putting it specifically into writing. And I think it's community education was a big piece, and which I've already said, I'm repeating myself now, and what projects we can get involved with, such as seeking Tree Town designation, possibly looking into the Supervisor's Monarch Challenge, Monarch Butterfly, and we're involved with the Earth Day. It was tree giveaway this past year. Bob used to be member of Conservation Board, so he had been involved with some of those tree giveaways, and then just looking at other things as they come up.
So do you get involved with like wetlands when construction projects
Yes,
have the
we look at
potential?
all the EPODs.
Okay, and then, and I don't know this, does Penfield have an open space kind of goal?
Well, actually, that's part of our comprehensive plan.
Right.
So every 10 years, the blueprint for the town is updated. The plan right now was last done in 2010. 2020 was what 2020 was. So it's been kind of in limbo and being worked on until this year. We're actually hoping to get it presented and approved by the end of the year. That's our goal. But that details how land use will occur over the span of time in a town. So it's a really important document.
Speaking sort of the comprehensive plan, we were briefly talking about this with the what do we want our goals to be, and this is kind of where the gray area between the board and our boards is like a climate action plan per se, because it can't be in this comprehensive plan of 2020, but we were like discussing like with the Energy and Environment Commission, what exactly our roles are between that, because if we create like a town of Penfield climate plan, it kind of like puts our two boards like it would be.
We don't
better.
want to. We don't want to repeat each other's efforts.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah.
And another thing we really wanted a goal to be partnering with, you've mentioned Color Penfield Green, to be partnering with groups like that, because they're a wealth of knowledge, and so we don't want to recreate the wheel, because they know a lot. And I think some portion of what we've been talking about doing is also education for ourselves.
And if I recall correctly, I believe in the past, Conservation Board has had educational meetings where someone would come in and kind of do a small presentation on different topics. We just
started that this year, that Megan Meyer from Healthy Yards, Monroe County, and also part of Color Penfield Green came in and spoke, and we put together a speaker list that we wanted to draw on, and we didn't choose to do that every month, but to maybe have it quarterly, and Mark was to have been our next speaker in September, but now just got put off till October, and then we have not gone beyond that. But that would be our for any residents viewing for their viewing pleasure to have information on that. And we're also talked about trying to have a section in the town website, and what would Conservation Board section website look like, so that people can click on Conservation Board and see what events are going on. And in many ways it might overlap an event that's already being offered on another board, but that's okay, because of some of residents thinking, I'm interested in conservation, they'll click Conservation Board rather than the Energy Board, Energy and Environmental. Maybe they wouldn't even know that name.
Any other comments or, I mean, I think that it will be helpful for us to visit your board as well. I think there might be some really good conversations after we've viewed each other's boards to say, well, what could we look like in the future, right?
Yes.
So, okay. Do you feel like there's murkiness or ambiguity in the mission of the Conservation Board versus the mission of this board? Committee, I should say.
I was going to say, see, I don't feel that we're a board, so that's the reason. I mean, I think we're an advisory committee, which is why I said you guys do real work. We're kind of, you
But
know.
so are we. We're an advisory committee. We've just always been called Conservation Board.
Oh, it's the same terminology.
So it's actually a requirement by New York State for town or municipalities to have a conservation board, and it needs to be called a board.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So although they're advisory, it's a New York State regulation that's in their title.
Yeah, so when I look at what you're describing, I think of you as Conservation Board more focused on nature projects, nature type of levels, whereas it seems like so far we've been more focused on infrastructure. So dealing with waste systems, dealing with power usage, dealing with those sort of structures.
But all those things interact with the environment and conservation of natural resources and habitats and the things that electronic and infrastructure work with will affect the natural resources and the bees and the pollinators.
Very synergistic.
Yes, so.
Definitely two different kind of focal points.
That's kind of why I believe that if we do move forward with like a more climate-focused, comprehensive plan, that both of our boards, well, board and commissioner, like whatever the terminology is, like that we both have our knowledge base and then we can work together to create something.
Yeah, I'd love to see your meeting. That'd be, I'm sure it's actually like this one, it's on PCTV. I just would never think to go watch.
Well, as I said, we do have a habit of getting into some lively discussion. So.
When is your October meeting?
October
It's
4th.
next week, right?
October 4th is
First Tuesday? We're usually first Tuesday of the month.
First Tuesday of the month.
Unless something like Labor Day intervenes, so.
And what time is that, Pat?
We meet at 7.
7, okay.
Same thing, about 7 to 8:30.
Well, just in the interest of sort of moving things along, I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't, if we're available, attend the October 4th meeting just to sit.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely.
And that would give us a good indication of the kinds of issues you deal with, and maybe that just moves up our conversation a little earlier.
Okay.
Is that okay? If
Oh,
we
sure.
crash your party?
Certainly, of course, everybody, there's public participation's welcome, and,
Okay. That would be great. Okay, so I think this is definitely a new business that should be continued. I think it should just be tabled as a discussion item at our next meeting, which will be November, correct?
November 16th.
Okay, and do recall that's the third week of November because the fourth week is Thanksgiving already, so.
oh, okay.
So November 16th is the next meeting of the Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee. Are there any other questions or comments?
If I may, before we finish, I meant to also include with CCA, if residents are looking to not be part of the program because it's an opt-out program, they can opt out at any time without any fees. They can do that through the PenfieldCCA.com website. They can do that by calling Constellation New Energy, whose contact information is also on that website. And they can also do that by calling Good Energy, the town's administrator of the program, whose information is also on that website. If they have any questions, they can call Good Energy's local number, or they can also call us at the town.
I wanted to add another piece to that. If anybody wants to opt in the
thank you.
process is similar, correct?
Up back in.
All of those options are available to also opt in.
Yes, and
Take
even if
advantage
you've
of the-
opted out, you may opt back in.
Take
At any
advantage of
time.
Yes.
the good rate right now. You can
Yeah.
opt back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any statistics on how many opt-back-ins we've had at all?
I only have the
Net.
net number. I
Okay.
do not have the different directions.
Okay, that's okay. Just thought I'd ask. All right, if there are no more comments, then we'll declare this meeting adjourned. Have a safe weekend, everyone, and we'll see you back here November 16th.